Okay, Nelson Mandela, long walk to freedom. The very first thing before we begin with this chapter is that we need to remember that which country had been following a system of differentiating between the race and the color of the individuals. It was South Africa, and there was one person who everyone remembers as Nelson Mandela. He was the man who undertook the responsibility, who undertook all the tortures just in order to eradicate the system from South Africa forever. So this chapter is somewhat wherein he is giving a detailed account that how all and what all things happened when it was decided that apartheid would be eradicated forever. Okay, so before we actually begin with the text, there are a few things which we need to discuss. Before you read, see this, the left page. Apartheid is a political system that separates people according to their race. South Africa was the country wherein the system existed for years, and the man who did all the problematic undertakings was Nelson Mandela. See a very short note which is given about him here. He was with his African National Congress spending a lifetime fighting against the system. He even had to spend 30 years in prison. Finally, democratic elections were held in South Africa in 1994, and underline this line in your textbooks, he became the first black president of a new nation. New nation means a nation wherein this system had been brought to an end forever. A system which segregated people from one another. A system which differentiated between the blacks and the whites. That was brought to an end. Okay. Nelson Mandela has become South Africa's first black president after more than 3 centuries of white rule. Mr. Mandela's African National Congress Party won 252 of the 400 seats in the first democratic elections of South Africa's history. The inauguration ceremony took place in the Union Buildings Amphitheatre in Pretoria today, attended by politicians and dignitaries. Dignitaries are the people who hold high ranks in an office. So all the dignitaries and more from basically they were from more than 140 countries around the world. Never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another. Oppression of one by another means once again that policy had been completely over from South Africa, completely eradicated, completely been removed, whatever we may call as. Said Nelson Mandela in his address to the gathering there. Jubilant scenes on the streets of Pretoria followed the ceremony with blacks, whites, coloreds celebrating together. Every person in the country was celebrating the removal of this policy from the country. More than 1 lakh South African men, women and children of all races sang and danced with joy. They were rejoicing because they were very happy about it. Okay, now the text begins. 10th May dawned bright and clear. The day was special. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries. Besieged means surrounded. Many people surrounded him. by the dignitaries. Dignitaries, I told you the meaning just now. People holding high ranks, high positions. And the world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. What inauguration exactly was, that has been introduced to you now. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. On South African soil, it happened for the first time. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheater. Okay, now what is this amphitheater? You may have seen in some of the movies and some of the serials, this is basically a big stadium having some seating arrangement like benches over it. It has no roof. Like when we call it an auditorium, it has a roof. But without the roof, an open place having some benches for the audience to sit, that is an amphitheater, and it is an architectural form of ancient Greece and Rome. So here they say that the ceremonies, the very important ceremonies of that time used to take place in amphitheaters. And it was formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. Write the meaning of the word Pretoria. And now it was the site of a rainbow gathering. Rainbow gathering means all kinds of people from different religions, from different places were there, and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic, non-racial government. On that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Zenani. On the podium you understand, the place where a person would give his speech. Pretoria is capital of South Africa. Pretoria is a place, Aditya, write the meaning. It refers to capital of South Africa. So all the people were there because they had gathered there to witness the formation of a non-racial government. On that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied. Then on the podium, Mr. D. Clark was first sworn in as second deputy president. Then Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the constitution. Here is Nelson Mandela who says this. And to devote myself to the well-being of the Republic and its people. To the assembled guests and the watching world, I said, now this part of Nelson Mandela's speech is important. Each word should be heard clearly. Today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to the newborn liberty. The eradication of that policy by them is initiation of a newborn liberty to them. On the experience of the extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, they are calling that policy as a disaster which continued for years and years. It must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. A society wherein there is no differentiation. A society wherein everyone is considered equal. We who were outlaws not so long ago. Outlaws are the people who have been segregated intentionally by someone. So who were outlaws not so long ago, means past few years they had been neglected by the people, they were being differentiated, have today been given the rare privilege to be the host to the nations of the world on our own soil. Means past few years they were being neglected. People never visited South Africa thinking that this place is a place wherein there is differentiation amongst people. There is injustice prevailing there. So they wouldn't go to South Africa. But now they say that they were very happy about it. So these people were given the privilege to be the host. मीन जहां पर कोई जाना पसंद नहीं करता था, वहां पर इतनी सारी कंट्रीज के डिग्निटरीज आए हैं, बिकॉज दे आर नाउ हैप्पी दैट फाइनली अ wrongdoing has come to an end. We thank all our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of a country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, peace, and human dignity. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. Emancipation is freedom from something, wherein we are relieved from a social evil. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage. Means when this policy was followed, all the blacks in the country, they were undergoing pains for many years together, but their pain was always unheeded too. Now here they say, liberated all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discriminations. So many different ways they were considered as lower from the whites. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by the other. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. Okay, so this was the speech which he gave in the inaugural ceremony, wherein the dignitaries of so many countries had visited. So Nelson Mandela spoke this there. Okay. A few months later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets. Spectacular is something which is very magnificent to watch. Array means a colorful display, an attractive display. And this spectacular array was of the jets which flew overhead. Helicopters, troop carriers, all rode in perfect formation over the Union buildings. Whenever any such great ceremony is there, army is always displaying something very, means what do we call, something which is very great, magnificent, or a sort of achievement to them. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision. Pinpoint precision means such deftly they did it, such skillfully it was performed that everyone just watched in awe about the thing over there. And military force, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy. That military also is now considering democracy and its existence in the country as respectable. So the new government that had been freely plus fairly elected. Only moments before the highest generals of South African Defence Force and Police, their chests bedecked with ribbons. Bedecked is decorated. Decorated with ribbons and medals from days gone by. Saluted me, and they even pledged their loyalty. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets. Chevron is a V shaped display of something. Left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue, and the gold of the new South African flag. Okay,